Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we turn to talking about an upcoming video game that has a lot of hype around it. It's had some controversies and some interesting turns too, so we're going to go over it all today. I'm of course talking about Cyberpunk 2077. This is a highly anticipated game from CD Projekt Red, who became pretty famous when they made the Witcher series. The Witcher 3, of course, was a big hit back from around 2015, and now their next endeavor is slated to be a big hit this year too. Now, it has had a little bit of a rocky road. The game's already been delayed a couple times, but as the famous Nintendo creator once said, a delayed game can possibly be good, but a game that ships early and is not good will never be good. So I kind of paraphrased and butchered that quote, but the point is, delaying isn't necessarily bad, but it shows there were some issues, and this company is luckily smart enough to delay instead of trying to rush something out and patch it later. That can become a big disaster. But fortunately, the game is coming soon, I believe in a couple months, sometime in November, and people are super excited. They've talked about some of the features before. They got some controversy and some interest in them because, for example, they had this whole option for your character creator screen. This is one of those games where you make your own character. It's sort of like an action RPG from what I understand. I know it's not out yet, but if it's similar to what I'm thinking, it's like you make your character, you go throughout this world, you follow some missions, you have side quests and stuff like that. And in the character creator, there's a lot of options for gender. They're very much like opening up the gender fluidity thing, but it's not necessarily a woke move. I think it's more because this is set in the future and they're kind of like making almost a parody of that, and also a kind of commentary on the way things might be in the future. 2077 is about 50 years from now. So that's an interesting take. And more importantly, today's news story is talking about crunch and how the studio has reversed their previous statements about making their employees work on a crunch schedule. We're going to talk about that soon, go over what crunch is and why it's typically wrong real quick. But first, let's take a moment to check out our sponsor. 70 to 90% of your skin, joints, tendons, and bones are made up of collagen. Your gut depends on it too, and even your hair and nails contain collagen as well. And that's why I started taking Ageless Multi-Collagen. Just add 1 scoop of it to whatever you're drinking at the time, and then in less than a month, you'll start experiencing younger looking skin with more vibrance, and you'll have more energy too, just like me. Plus, if you order today, we'll offer free shipping by going to my custom link right below this video, or you could type in healthwithnobs.com. Thanks for your time. Hope you enjoy this product. And now back to the show. Great. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk more about Cyberpunk. This tweet was what alerted me to this news story. It says, last year, the bosses of CD Projekt Red approached me for an interview. They wanted to announce that for Cyberpunk 2077, they would be avoiding mandatory crunch. This week, they sent out an email to staff announcing studio-wide mandatory crunch. So they're going back on their word from a year ago. I know a lot can change in a year, but it does make it seem like, oh, last year they were just saying that. They were just saying that to sound good way early on. But now that it comes time, they are implementing crunch. And essentially, from my understanding as a layman, not really directly connected to the gaming industry, just a fan from the outside, but I have heard stories, and essentially crunch time is what it might sound like. It's when people have to work really long hours every day of the week, typically. I think this crunch is different. It's like 6 days a week, but you might be working 10, 12, 16, 18 hours a day. Like, who knows? You could stay at the office all week for certain projects and situations. And it's really tough on employees. Obviously, like, they don't get enough time off. Sure, they get some extra pay, some overtime, and whatever it may be. That's a lot of good extra money. And a lot of people would opt for that. But the problem is not everyone does. Like, not everyone needs overtime. Not everyone thinks it's worth it. And to make it mandatory is what's really tough. Now, granted, this is something that is to be expected in the gaming industry. You should know this if you get into it, if you're going to become a worker in that industry, but it really shouldn't be. I think that's the greater point. This is like showing that it's hard on employees. It's almost like typical like sweatshop labor kind of conditions where you're just like work, no breaks, no time off. You're forced to work certain days instead of given the option for overtime, or they could possibly bring in, new people to work on top of that. That's hard to do. But the point is they're putting in crunch. People are offended by that. And it is definitely a bad sign too, because the game is just 2 months away. If they're going into crunch right now, you wonder what's going on. I've heard conflicting reports saying the game is already done. The game is almost ready. It's going to be on time. I wonder if it might get delayed again. I doubt it, but this is just all adding up to some very suspect stories. Cyberpunk 2077 publisher orders 6-day weeks ahead of launch. This is by Jason. Polish video game developer CD Projekt Red told employees on Monday that 6-day work weeks will be mandatory February leading up to the November release of the highly anticipated Cyberpunk, reneging on an earlier promise to not force overtime on the project. Red, a subsidiary of Poland's biggest gaming company, CD Projekt SA, has been criticized previously for engaging in crunch, an industry term for excessive overtime in game development. The practice often lasts for weeks and can stretch out for months or even years. CD Projekt Red co-chief executive officer Marcin Iwinski last year told gaming website Kotaku that the company would be avoiding mandatory crunch and was committed to allowing employees to work without overtime. So this is a full reversal of what they said last year. I think they might regret what they said, or they forgot, or they don't care. I mean, they want to get this game out, so it's probably beyond the point of appeasing some people in the press, but it is a bad sign. You worry about those employees. I mean, they're certainly getting compensated, but it gets to a point, like I've worked at jobs like this before. I've worked a lot of different jobs in food and industry, in television and production stuff too. And when you start working 12-hour days every day, your life gets like really, really tough. Now, I don't want to complain. Working is good. You get paid really well too, but there gets to be a point where you're just like, I just want to go home. I just would rather have an 8 or 10-hour day, like a more regular job, because working 12 hours plus, and then say, for example, some of these jobs have a 12-hour schedule. A lot of TV production jobs do. I'm familiar with those specifically. I'm sure film has a similar situation. Now, those jobs can be seasonal too, so you will have time off in the year. But the fact is, when you work 12 hours, you don't really want overtime, even if you get some more money, unless you're just so high energy. And yeah, there are people that need the money too. So there are exceptions. But from what I've seen, it's just you get to a point where you're like, you already have enough money. You're already working. You want to like live your life. You want to do something. You don't want to just work 18 hours a day and then all you can do is go home and sleep and eat and then come back. You barely have time to take a shower. And that's the situation and what I feel is going on with these video game places. And to force that on employees is what makes it worse. I mean, to offer extra time or overtime and to say, hey, if you guys want some extra days, you could take them. But to force it is what is really tricky. 6 days a week isn't necessarily that bad, but that again is similar to some of my schedules before. They only give you 1 day off a week. And the problem with that is it's something. It's definitely something. You're not working 24/7, but 1 day off isn't really enough to decompress. You like basically get off on Saturday night and then you have Sunday to rest a little bit, but you can't really do much. Like some people will use that day to do their chores or to do something else, but it's like, do you really want to go and, say do your laundry or do some lawn work on your 1 day off a week? It's like, no, you can't even have time for anything. You just want to lay down. And by the time you rest up on Sunday, you got to go back to work the next day. So it's a tough situation, something I've been familiar with, and I can see the issue. But an account from a CD Projekt Red employee recently, as well as an email to staff earlier this week, indicate that the company hasn't lived up to its word. The employee, who asked not to be named discussing private information, said some staff had already been putting in nights and weekends for more than a year. In the email, CD Projekt Red studio head Adam Badowski wrote that he was optimistic about the state of Cyberpunk, which stars Keanu Reeves, and that they had just sent the game to be certified for release on Sony Corp's PlayStation and Microsoft's Xbox. Now, he wrote, it was time to fix the game's many lingering bugs and glitches. Starting today, the entire development studio is in overdrive, Badowski wrote, elaborating that this meant your typical amount of work and 1 day of weekend. The extra work would be paid as required by Polish labor laws. Many other video game studios don't pay for overtime. So that's another issue. That's really bad. I was actually just assuming the overtime was paid, but it appears there's some that don't. Some people must be on like a salary or like a weekly payment where it's just like you sign up for that and the company owns you. Like they can make you work however many hours a week they want, which really sucks. Like that's the worst position to be in. So that's where you really want to give people the benefit of the doubt. You want to really give them the pity they kind of need and deserve. But if you're getting paid, it is slightly better. But I already went over how it can be bad, how it can be annoying and possibly like soul crushing and definitely bad for your social life, family life. You're not going to have time for any of that. And although you're getting paid, like that's nice to get some extra money. But like I said, these guys are already highly paid too. Like a lot of these people are getting $50,000, $100,000 a year or something like that. Like these are not low paying jobs. And once you get to that level, you're just like, do I really want more money? Like, do I need an extra 100, 200, 500 bucks a week? Maybe even 1,000. I mean, who knows? But it's like, yeah, that'd be nice too. But you also want to live your life and you want to have time for family, for friends, go to the movies, do your stuff at home. And it just adds to that. And the fact that some of those people don't get paid for overtime is super sketchy. But fortunately, it's not happening here. I take it upon myself to receive the full backlash for the decision, he wrote. I know this is in direct opposition to what we've said about about crunch, it's also in direct opposition to what I personally grew to believe a while back, that crunch should never be the answer, but we've extended all other possible means of navigating the situation. In a post on Twitter Wednesday, Badowski said CD Projekt employees can continue to count on bonus payouts amounting to 10% of the company's annual profit. This could prove to be a lucrative sum, as analysts estimate the Warsaw-based company's net income will rise 11-fold to $2.5 billion US in 2020. CD Projekt had 1,000 employees at the end of June. So they are going to get bonuses. They are being compensated. That is a good sign, but it does make me worry more about the game. Like we already talked about the rocky road they had, the multiple delays, the possible wokeness and problematic parts and, controversies. So the fact that they're crunching now 2 months before release, it tells me that they might not still be done. They're talking about ironing out bugs. I believe they confirmed that the game's story is done, like the mission is done, but that's not the final thing. Like you got to test the game and fix any glitches and errors. This is like a big open world thing where you explore a city and you ride vehicles and you do all this stuff. There's NPCs all over the place. So there's a lot of things that could go wrong there, a lot of moving parts. And the fact that they have to crunch to get it done in time now, so close to the release, it shows that, like this guy said, he said they exhausted all options, which means they might have thought about delaying again, but they literally can't. I mean, if they delay past this, they're going to go into December. They're going to miss the Christmas season. This is big for video games. This is big for sales. Coming out after Christmas, say in January or something, would totally ruin the market for them. I mean, granted, this is a highly anticipated game. It'll still sell. People will still buy it next year, but I don't think they're going for that. They're going for a crunch before Christmas. And I mean, that's kind of cool for the fans too. I know everyone's dying to play it, but thinking about the people working there, thinking about the bad situation they're going to be in for a while, makes you really worry and makes you think that also this game could have troubles. It's not necessarily going to be a total stone cold hit. The Witcher 3 was great and the company made the whole Witcher series, but they weren't all as legendary. It took them a while to get off on the ground running. Witcher 1 and 2 are still good classics as well, but 3 was where they really got lightning in a bottle. So we'll see if they can pull that off in the first entry of Cyberpunk. That about wraps things up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Do you like Cyberpunk, this game? Are you interested in playing it? Did you play the previous games by this company? Tell me what you think. Also hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and see you on the next video. Have a great day.